Being alone doesn't mean being less. In a world that constantly equates social status with the number of people around you, it's easy to mistake solitude for inadequacy. But being alone isn't a deficiency. It's a declaration of self. It's not about isolation. It's about choosing yourself when the world forgets to. There is strength in walking alone, in dining solo and dreaming, without someone else clapping beside you. When you're alone, you're forced to confront your truest self. Not the version that performs for others, but the one who sits with raw emotion and finds meaning in silence. Many people fear being alone because they've never met the version of themselves that doesn't need applause. They haven't sat with their own thoughts without distraction. But let me tell you, once you do, you begin to uncover who you are beyond labels, beyond relationships, beyond the eyes watching you. You learn that your worth isn't dependent on validation, attention, or inclusion. You learn that your voice carries weight even when no one else hears it. And more importantly, you learn to listen to your own needs, your own dreams, your own intuition. Being alone gives you time to grow. You become unshakable because you know who you are without needing someone else to define it. People will come and go. Friends will leave. Relationships will shift. And sometimes you'll look around and see an empty room. That's not failure, that's freedom. It's a sacred space where transformation begins. Think of it like this. Diamonds aren't formed in crowds. They're formed under pressure, in darkness, in silence. That's the power of solitude. It shapes you in ways company never can. When you rely on others for your happiness, your identity becomes fragile, dependent on external factors you can't control. But when you cultivate your own joy, your own peace, you become your own constant in a world that keeps changing. Society often glorifies the image of a well-connected woman, the social butterfly, the girl who's always surrounded by friends, who has someone to call at any hour. But there's another kind of woman too, the one who walks into a cafe with a book instead of a friend. The one who travels alone, dines alone, dreams alone, and does it with quiet confidence. She's not less. She's not missing out. She's choosing herself in a world that tells her she should always be available to others. When I found myself with no one around, I stopped asking why people left. I started asking what I needed to find within. I discovered hobbies, passions, peace. I started journaling, working out, reading again, not because someone told me to, but because I wanted to. I stopped trying to fit into groups that made me shrink to be accepted. I stopped laughing at jokes that made me feel small. That's when I realized I wasn't alone because I was unlovable. I was alone because I was outgrowing spaces that didn't honor me. And don't get me wrong, human connection is beautiful. We all need it. But you deserve connection that sees you, values you, uplifts you. Not just keeps you company. Until that comes, your own presence is more than enough. Because you and your fullness and your quiet strength are whole. You were never meant to fill your life with noise, just to avoid the truth of your own brilliance. There's power in being the woman who doesn't need a crowd to feel important. Power in being the one who keeps going even when no one's cheering. Power in waking up every day and showing up for yourself again and again until your solitude becomes your sanctuary. So if you find yourself alone, don't rush to fill the space. Sit in it, breathe in it. Let it teach you what company never could, that your value doesn't shrink in silence, that your story is still unfolding, and that sometimes being alone is the most powerful chapter of all. Silence is where strength is born. Not in the noise, not in the applause, not in the constant chatter of opinions and distraction. Real strength, the kind that anchors you through storms, begins in the stillness. In the quiet moments when no one is watching, when no one is validating your journey, when the world is moving fast and you're standing still. That's where transformation begins. That's where you meet yourself. Silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. It's where the deepest questions rise and the most honest truths reveal themselves. We often run from silence because it forces us to hear what we've been trying to avoid. It's uncomfortable at first. No screens, no noise, no background buzz to distract us from our thoughts. But if you stay in it, if you let yourself sit in the discomfort, you'll start to hear something powerful, your own voice. That voice, the one buried beneath expectations and noise, is your guide. In silence, you hear what you really want. Not what your friends expect, not what your family hopes, not what society says you should chase. You hear your true desires, your raw fears, your unfiltered dreams. And that's where your strength begins to grow. From knowing who you are when there's no one around to influence you. When everything around you goes quiet, you become your own compass. You begin to trust your intuition. You start making choices not out of fear or pressure, but from a place of inner clarity. That's powerful. Because once you're grounded in your truth, you can't be easily swayed. You stop second-guessing your worth. You stop asking for permission to exist. You stop needing people to agree with you just to feel secure. The world glorifies hustle and loud ambition. But sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is step back. Turn the volume down. Listen to yourself. Because strength isn't just about pushing through. It's also about pausing, reflecting, and choosing your direction with intention. It's in those pauses that resilience is built. It's in those pauses that healing happens. Think of the calm before a storm, not as weakness, but as power gathering itself. Think of how seeds break through the soil in silence, how roots grow deeper without making a sound. Nature knows this. Growth doesn't always announce itself with noise. Sometimes, the most significant transformations are quiet. There was a time I mistook silence for weakness. I used to think that if I wasn't talking, posting, sharing, or performing, I was invisible. But silence taught me that visibility isn't the same as value. Just because you're not being seen doesn't mean you're not becoming. Just because no one is clapping doesn't mean the work you're doing, inside and out, isn't powerful. Some of the strongest people I know aren't the loudest in the room. They're the ones who've been through battles they never spoke about. They're the ones who sat in their darkest nights and got back up quietly. No spotlight, no applause, just sheer will. That's real strength. And it's born in silence. Silence also teaches you patience. In a world that tells you to chase, to compete, to rush, silence invites you to slow down, to breathe, to wait for the right moment instead of grabbing the first thing that comes your way. And that kind of patience rooted in trust, not fear, is a rare and fierce strength. When you build your life from silence, it has depth. It's not built on trends or temporary praise. It's built on truth, on soul, on something unshakable. So when life gets noisy again, and it will, you'll know how to return to that quiet place inside you. That place where your power lives. Silence isn't absence, it's presence. It's where you stop reacting and start responding. Where you stop performing and start becoming. It's where the real work is done. The work that no one sees but everyone feels once you emerge. So if you're in a silent season, don't panic. Don't rush to fill the space. Stay with it. Let it shape you. Because the strongest version of you is being built not when the world is clapping, but when you're sitting in the stillness, choosing to rise anyway. Choose quality over company. It sounds simple, but in practice it's one of the hardest lessons to learn. Especially in a world that idolizes popularity, crowds, and constant connection. We've been conditioned to believe that being surrounded by people is proof of being loved, accepted, and valued. But what happens when you're in a room full of people and still feel lonely? What happens when the voices around you drown out your own? That's when you realize not all company is good company. Not all friendships are rooted in love. Not all laughter is real, and not all togetherness is healthy. There's a kind of power in choosing to be alone rather than being with people who drain your energy, disrespect your boundaries, or make you feel small. It takes courage to walk away from relationships that are familiar but no longer fulfilling. It takes strength to say, this isn't good for me, even if it means standing alone for a while. But that's the difference between surviving and thriving. Quantity fills space. Quality fills your soul. Many people keep toxic or surface-level connections simply to avoid the discomfort of solitude. But when you settle for people who only show up when it's convenient, who speak more than they listen, who compete more than they support, you're not building relationships, you're building cages. Cages that limit your growth, your confidence, and your self-worth. You end up shrinking yourself to fit into places that don't deserve you. Choosing quality means choosing people who see you. Not just when you're shining, but also when you're struggling. People who don't just tolerate your truth, but respect it. It's about finding those rare souls who cheer for your success without feeling threatened by it. Who challenge you with love, and who stand by you not because they need something from you, but because they value who you are. Real relationships are not transactional. They are rooted in trust, effort, and mutual respect. They don't have to be loud or constant to be real. Sometimes the quietest friend is the one who holds your heart the best. Sometimes the person who checks in after everyone else forgets is the one you should keep close. It's not about how many people are in your life. It's about who you become when you're with them. When you surround yourself with people who elevate you, everything shifts. Your energy, your mindset, your direction, you start making better choices. You start dreaming bigger. You feel seen and heard, and that gives you the confidence to be fully, unapologetically yourself. You no longer have to edit your personality to fit in. You no longer have to keep proving your worth. You're enough, and they remind you of that every single time. But before you can attract quality people, you have to be one yourself. That starts with being honest about what you truly want in your relationships. It starts with setting boundaries, not walls, but healthy limits. It starts with showing up for yourself the way you wish others would. Because once you treat yourself with value, you naturally stop settling for less from others. It's okay to be selective with your space. Your peace is precious. Your energy is limited. Not everyone deserves access to it. Don't be afraid to say no, to walk away, to protect your spirit. Some people are meant to be lessons, not lifelong companions. And that's not bitterness, it's wisdom. You'll find that the more you prioritize quality, the more intentional you become. Conversations get deeper, bonds get stronger, life feels lighter. Even if you have only one or two people you truly connect with, that's enough. That's more than enough. Because real connection isn't about numbers, it's about depth. You don't need a crowd, you need truth. You need loyalty. You need love that doesn't come with conditions or competition. And most importantly, you need to remember that it's better to walk alone with dignity than to be surrounded by people who make you question your worth. So yes, choose quality over company, always. Because in the end, it's not about how many people you have in your life. It's about how deeply they love you, how honestly they hold space for you, and how authentically they allow you to be yourself. And that kind of company, that's not just worth waiting for, it's worth everything. Build a life that makes people want to be around you, but don't depend on it. There's a difference between attracting people and needing them. One comes from a place of wholeness, the other from a void. And that difference defines how you experience your relationships, your self-worth, and ultimately, your happiness. The truth is, the most magnetic people are those who are already fulfilled within themselves. They aren't desperate for company. They radiate peace, passion, and purpose. And others naturally gravitate toward that energy. But here's the key. Their identity doesn't crumble if they find themselves alone. They've built something no one else can take away. We live in a world that constantly tells us to be likable, to fit in, to win approval. From childhood, we're taught to seek validation. Stars on papers, praise from teachers, followers on social media, compliments from strangers. But when your life revolves around being accepted by others, you lose sight of your authentic self. You start molding yourself to please, to be wanted, to be chosen, and slowly you forget that you were already worthy before anyone told you so. The most powerful shift happens when you decide to build a life that reflects who you are, not for attention, but for alignment. That means doing what lights your soul on fire, even if no one else claps. It means chasing goals that make your heart race, investing in passions that don't need an audience, and cultivating a mindset that says, I'm enough, right here, right now. When you start showing up for yourself consistently, your energy changes. You become someone who inspires others, not because you're trying to, but because you're simply living in truth. And yes, people will be drawn to that. People are naturally attracted to authenticity, confidence, and passion. When you're grounded in who you are, when you love your own life, you become a magnet. Not by force, but by presence. But here's the warning. Don't build your life for others. Don't make your progress, your growth, or your happiness dependent on whether people stay. Because the same people who are amazed by your light may one day walk away. And if your self-worth is tied to them, their absence will feel like your collapse. That's why independence, emotional, spiritual, even social, is essential. You have to become the kind of person who can enjoy a full meal without someone sitting across the table. The kind of person who can dance without a partner, dream without approval, and heal without applause. You build your life so rich and full that whether someone stays or leaves, your world doesn't fall apart. Their presence is a blessing, but not a requirement. There's nothing lonelier than needing people just to feel complete. And there's nothing more freeing than knowing you are enough, even when no one is around to remind you. Relationships become healthier when they're born from wholeness, not dependency. Love becomes purer when it's not built on need, but on choice. Friendships thrive when they're grounded in mutual respect, not in the fear of being alone. When you stop depending on people to give your life meaning, you start filling your days with purpose. You learn to enjoy your own company, to find peace in solitude, to create joy out of simple moments. You stop waiting for someone to invite you to the party. You throw your own. You stop waiting for love. You become it. That's when people come. Not because you need them, but because you've become someone worth knowing. And remember, building a life you love isn't about perfection. It's not about constantly achieving, impressing, or hustling. It's about alignment, living in a way that feels true to who you are. It's about making space for your voice, your values, your vision. The more you do that, the more you shine. And when you shine, you give others permission to do the same. So yes, build that life. Make it rich with meaning. Fill it with laughter, dreams, growth, and self-respect. Let it reflect who you are at your core, but never forget, you are the foundation. People may join your journey, walk beside you, even love you deeply. But whether they stay or not, the life you build will still stand strong, because you didn't build it for them, you built it for you.